Hi there, and thanks for stopping by. I'm going to talk about the model you see here in front of you, about what it is, how I made it, and why I made it, which I think is a good question. I think most people coming here will already know what it is, but for those that don't, it's a recreation of the exterior and entrance to the Blackpool Doctor Who Exhibition that ran from 1974 until 1985, so quite some time ago now. It was situated just opposite Central Pier, right in the heart of Blackpool, just off the Golden Mile. So if you were coming up from the Pleasure Beach end towards the tower, you'd have the pier on the left, and on the right you'd have the Doctor Who Exhibition. You couldn't miss it. I mean, given the fact the TARDIS entrance itself was 12 feet tall, bright blue, and it had TARDIS written on the side, then you've got those sidings above, the yellow boards with Doctor Who Exhibition, Defy the Daleks, Visit the TARDIS, the arrows pointing towards the entrance. You've got that huge sign in front of it with Doctor Who Exhibition again pointing towards it. And as you got closer, you'd have the audio, you'd have the Doctor Who theme playing out through tannoy speakers. And if you were lucky, you'd catch staff members dressed in costume walking around scaring visitors. So you'd have a Sideman or a Zygon out there. There was a Dalek out there, and Doctor Who's car Bessie for photo opportunities. So a real attraction just in itself, and that's before you've even gone in. And I think the area, when you look at it today, it's definitely lost something. It's definitely lost the draw that it once had there, unless of course you're looking for a pair of shoes. So I think that's a reason for building it. We can't rebuild it how it was, although if anyone is interested, let me know. But we can reproduce it as a model, to stir a few memories and to allow us to remember an experience that is sadly now gone. And I think for those of us that were lucky enough to visit, it was just that, an experience. It's certainly something that stuck with me through the years. I must have been about 10 when I first went there. And back then, you have to remember, we didn't have theme parks or anything like that. We had fun fairs and amusement parks, but this was definitely the first immersive experience I'd ever had. And I can only liken it today to a walk through dark ride. My parents weren't interested in going in, or they just didn't want to pay the 50p each. So my sister and I were sent in on our own. I mean, to me, just going into the TARDIS was enough. I'd seen it on TV, but here it was in reality. And I think it's a good point to make. When you were a child, the difference between fiction and reality was a little blurred. I mean, you sort of knew it was a TV series, but the Doctor was the Doctor, a Dalek, and so on. So just going into that TARDIS and be able to walk into the doors, again, and this is before you've even gone in, so it's already having an impression on me. You went in, you went round to the left, and then you went down some stairs, so you're going down into the darkness, into the exhibition itself. There's no windows down there, and there's lots of loud sounds coming from K9 and from the Daleks. The exhibits themselves, they weren't just displayed, that they were extremely well presented in scenes from the actual episodes, with the sound and lighting. So you're actually sort of seeing, what you'd seen on television for real, full size in 3 dimensions, with the lighting, with sound, everything else. Absolutely fantastic. You continued winding through the corridor and you'd arrive at the TARDIS control room, with the console in there, with the time rotor moving up and down. I can't remember, I think you had the sound of the TARDIS, I couldn't remember now, but around the outside were more scenarios that you could see, almost like you were looking out of windows from the TARDIS, but around the console, and some big exhibits in there. I particularly remember the giant rat from the Talons of Weng Chiang, and a Davros, truly terrifying stuff. So how do you go about making something like this? Well, I started with the police box itself. It is 3D printed from a design I drew up in Fusion 360. If you start at the bottom and work your way up, it's not too difficult. Obviously, there's no plans for it, so there's a lot of what I call extrapolation. I mean, basically, you're trying to work out dimensions from something so you're looking at a lot of photos. Fortunately, there's quite a lot out there, particularly on the Facebook group, the Blackpool and Longleat Doctor Who Exhibition, where folks have shared their personal pictures of visits. Thank you for that. So with a few people, pictured in front of the box, you can work out roughly how tall it is, and then use what I call common sense, and you put yourself in the mind of the original builder and say, well, I'm going to use standard sizes available to me of timber and whatever, so 2x4s, 6x2s. So full size measurements are going to be 12, 6, 8 inches. They're not going to be halves or points even. That corner post, for example, is 12 inches square, and if you put someone's foot by the side of it, 12 inches. Now this model here is actually the first one I built. It's actually quite a lot larger than the one you see on the diorama, as I built it to go with the 5.5 inch figures from Character Options. I really like those figures, and the detail on them is superb, and of course they do a really good range of classic monsters that are very appropriate for the time scale that this exhibition was there. But it just works out to be too large. That this TARDIS itself is 12 inches tall, or 1 to 12. So for every inch on the model, it's 12 in real life. It makes it easy to work out, but it makes it just too big. It's absolutely massive. And you can see here, I've compared it to the later 1 to 18 scale that I settled on. 1 to 18 scale corresponds to the 3.75 inch, the Star Wars size figures. Character Options do a few in this scale, while Eagle Moss, as you see here, do more original series figures that are appropriate for this model. Sadly though, that they're just a little too small at 1 to 21. Though I did use the Cyberman, the Earthshock Cyberman, as he's a little taller than the others, even after I'd cut the base off. The roof felt, by the way, on the cabin part of the entrance is actually sandpaper painted grey. It gives the right texture, and I use the same technique on the tarmacked area of pavement just outside the entrance on the main model there. The key really to this model was the paved area, the pavement. I spent a lot of time working out the size and layout of all the slabs, and yes, they are all correct. Again, it's something we know the size of full size, so we can use these to extrapolate other dimensions, such as the distance back from the corner of the building to the entrance. The slabs themselves are 3mm foam board with the gaps between them scored in. You'll notice some paint techniques here where I've painted some of them lighter and some darker to give a more random pattern. The gaps between them I struggled with a bit, painting them first a dark grey colour, as you'd expect the gaps between stone to be dark or dirty, but if you look at the mortar they use, it tends to be lighter first and then it darkens with weathering. I discovered a new trick here, and that was using black poster paint, the powdery stuff. You can brush it on and rub it in with your fingers and wipe off in areas that you don't want it with a dry cloth. Once you're happy with it, you can then seal it with some matte lacquer. The back wall had a pebble dash effect, and I recreated this using a sponge brush and white acrylic paint, and just using a stippling method again. And really, with the exception of the police box itself, I've really only used 3 colours for the whole model. Yellow for the lines. The rest of it though, white and black, and just mixing those 2 colours, for all the different greys. Weathering we've already discussed. Nothing fancy there. On the back wall though, obviously I used a watered down black acrylic and then an airbrush just to blow that in. But really that was about it. The signs were laserjet printed just onto paper. It took me about a week though, just to draw that one up on the computer. I've then of course added the LED lighting, and those fluorescent tubes that you see there, not the ones in the TARDIS, but the ones next to it, they are actually real glass and fragile, as I found out a couple of times. I had taken them out of the protective cases and made new mounts for them, but take heed, lightsaber builders, and always buy spares. So there we go, and thanks for watching. I hope you've found this interesting, and thanks for sticking with me. Maybe you've learnt something along the way. If you're interested in building your own models and dioramas. That black poster paint idea though, I'm claiming that's definitely mine. So long.